you believe that you feel too much, that the intensity of your emotions makes you fragile, that your heart is a wild and ungovernable sea. But I tell you, it is not that you feel too much, it is that you were never taught the sacred art of feeling without becoming the feeling itself. You were never shown that to feel is not to dissolve, to experience is not to be consumed, to descend into the depths is not to drown. This is not your weakness. It is your unawareness of the boundaries that separate your soul from the flood of life sensations. The modern human, more than any generation before, has forgotten the mystery of the container, the inner vessel that can hold emotions like a chalice holding wine, without spilling or breaking. We live in an age where emotions are either suppressed until they rot in the shadows, or unleashed like storms that destroy everything in their path. We do not understand that the psyche is an alchemical crucible designed to transmute raw emotion into gold, but only if we are willing to step into the fire of awareness. Without this container, you confuse the emotion with the self. You say, I am sadness, I am rage, I am fear, but you are not those things. You are the one who can witness them, transform them, and give them meaning. The tragedy is not that you feel too deeply, but that you identify with every passing wave. When anger comes, you think you are anger. When sorrow knocks, you become sorrow. When love surges, you dissolve into love, losing all sense of self. It is as though your soul, like an unanchored ship, drifts into every current, unable to find the shore of its own being. Yet deep within you lies an archetype, the wise one, the eternal observer, who can hold all emotions without being destroyed by them. This is the self that I speak of, a self that waits in the quiet shadows of your psyche, longing for you to recognize its presence. I have seen in the depths of dreams how many of you are swallowed by oceans of feeling. You are like the dreamer who sees a wave rising on the horizon, so vast it blots out the sky. And you panic, thinking you must run or be consumed. But the dream is not the enemy. The wave is not your death. It is the unconscious calling you home, inviting you to learn the language of the sea. You are not meant to flee from your emotions, but to learn how to ride them, to surf their crests and dive into their depths without fear of losing yourself. Imagine for a moment that your soul is a great, timeless forest. Every emotion is a creature that lives there, the wolf of anger, the deer of tenderness, the raven of sorrow, the serpent of desire. These creatures are not meant to be caged, nor are they meant to devour you. They are guardians of a deeper truth. If you run from them, they grow wild and hunt you in your dreams. If you let them overtake you, they drag you into madness. But if you approach them with reverence, if you sit in the clearing of your inner forest and allow them to come close, you will see that each of them holds a secret, a fragment of your own soul that longs to be integrated. Feeling without dissolving is the path of integration. It means you no longer fear the wolf or the serpent, but you also do not mistake them for your whole being. You say, anger is here. Let me see what it wants to show me. Let me hold it in my hands as one holds a burning coal, carefully, with awareness, until I can place it where it belongs. This is not suppression, nor is it indulgence. It is the middle path of mastery, the sacred alchemy of the heart. Do you know why we fear our emotions so much? Because deep down we sense that they have power. To feel fully is to awaken. To feel without barriers is to touch the raw currents of life itself. And that is terrifying for a mind that has been trained to control, to measure, to numb. We were told that to feel is to be weak, that tears are shameful, that anger is destructive, that longing is dangerous. We were never taught that emotion is energy, and energy is the raw material of transformation. We were never taught that behind every emotion lies an archetype, a myth, a fragment of the divine story that is unfolding through our lives. In my work, I have seen how a single unacknowledged emotion can dominate an entire life. A woman who believes she is too sensitive spends years building walls to avoid feeling, only to become numb and hollow. A man who fears his rage turns it inward, and it becomes depression. A child who is told not to cry learns to bury their pain so deeply that as an adult, they cannot even remember who they are. To feel too much is not the curse. It is the doorway. The real suffering comes from not knowing how to walk through that doorway without losing oneself in the dark corridors of the unconscious. I ask you to consider this. What if your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a gift that has been misused? What if you were never meant to dull it, but to refine it, like a sword being sharpened on the stone of awareness? Your emotions are not here to destroy you. They are here to guide you, to reveal the truth of who you are. But they cannot do this if you are unwilling to face them, to hold them, to let them speak their strange and ancient language. There is a dream I once encountered from a patient who felt she was drowning in her own feelings. In her dream, she stood by a vast, dark lake, its waters black as ink, and she was terrified to enter. But there was a figure on the shore, an old woman with silver hair, holding a lantern. The woman said, "This lake is you. If you run from it, it will chase you. If you fall into it without knowing how to swim, it will swallow you. But if you learn its depths, if you dive with intention, you will find the treasures buried in its silence." When this dreamer finally found the courage to enter the lake, she discovered not monsters, but memories, buried emotions, long forgotten joys, unexpressed griefs, all waiting for her to acknowledge them. This is the task for each of us. To feel without dissolving is to stand at the edge of your inner lake and say, "I will enter, but I will not lose myself." It is to learn that you are not the water, you are the diver, the one who can explore and return to the surface. It is to realize that your consciousness is strong enough to hold the storm, that your soul is vast enough to contain both light and darkness without shattering. You see, the difficulty lies not in the existence of emotions, but in our inability to hold them as sacred guests rather than intruding invaders. Emotions were never meant to be enemies. They are messengers, raw and untamed, speaking a language older than words. When you dissolve into them, it is because you do not recognize yourself as something greater than the emotion itself. You become the storm because you forget that you are also the sky. The sky does not fear the storm, for it knows that the lightning, the thunder, and the rain will pass. The sky remains vast and unbroken. This is who you truly are. The unbroken expanse of awareness that can hold even the most violent tempests of feeling. The soul longs for wholeness, and wholeness requires that nothing within us be rejected or denied. What you call too much is often just the eruption of what has been repressed for too long. When the unconscious breaks through, it does so with an overwhelming force. Like a river bursting through a dam, you feel consumed because the energy that was meant to flow continuously, gently, was instead held back until it could no longer be contained. To learn how to feel without dissolving, you must learn the art of continuous expression, of letting the current move through you without judgment, without fear, without clinging. The world fears those who feel deeply because they remind us of something we have all forgotten, that the human heart is not mechanical but alive, radiant and unpredictable. The sensitive one is often accused of being fragile, when in truth their fragility is only the rawness of an unarmored soul. But rawness is not weakness. It is the fertile soil where real transformation takes place. A seed cannot grow unless it cracks open. So too, the heart must break to discover its own infinite capacity. Feeling deeply is not your curse, but your initiation. You dissolve because you were never taught the sacred dance between the ego and the self. The ego, that small but necessary structure, tries to hold control. It fears being overwhelmed, so it resists. The self, however, calls for surrender, not a collapse, but a surrender into a larger holding, a wider consciousness. When you identify solely with your ego, every wave of emotion feels like a threat. But when you begin to identify with the self, you realize you are both the wave and the ocean, both the container and the contained. Then feeling does not drown you. It deepens you. Think of the archetype of the Great Mother, the eternal feminine who can hold all things: joy, sorrow, birth, death, love, destruction, and remain whole. This archetype lives within you. It is the inner capacity to nurture, to hold, to witness, to allow. When you feel too much, it is often because you are cut off from this archetypal source. You have not yet built the inner mother, the inner father, the inner sanctuary, where emotions can safely unfold. Without that sanctuary, every feeling feels like an earthquake. But once you awaken these archetypes within, you become the vessel. You can cradle your own pain, your own fury, your own longing, and say, you belong here. I see you. I will not let you destroy me, and I will not abandon you either. In dreams, this inner container often appears as a house, a temple, or a vessel, a bowl, a cup, a chalice. Pay attention to such images, for they reveal the condition of your inner world. If the house in your dream is crumbling, it may be that your psyche lacks the structure to hold what you are feeling. If the chalice is cracked, it may mean you have been spilling your energy everywhere, unable to contain it, To repair these inner symbols is to strengthen your capacity for emotional life. There is a profound mythological truth in the image of the Grail, the sacred cup that holds the divine essence. It is said that the Grail cannot be found by those who seek it for power or possession. It reveals itself only to those who are pure of heart, who can approach it with reverence. In the same way, your emotional life requires reverence. You cannot conquer your feelings, nor can you ignore them. You must approach them as a knight approaches the Grail, with humility, with courage, and with a willingness to be transformed by what you discover. When you say you feel too much, I want you to ask, who is it that is feeling? Is it the small, fragile self that fears being washed away? Or is it the larger self that knows it can hold the entire cosmos within? You are more than your pain. You are more than your joy. You are the witness of these things, the silent presence beneath them all. When you remember this, you can feel fully without being consumed. You can weep without drowning. You can love without losing yourself. To feel is to be alive, but to feel with awareness is to be truly human. Animals feel instinctively, but they do not contemplate their feelings. Humans are given the gift and the burden of reflection. We are called to turn inward, to ask why an emotion arises, to seek its roots in our personal and collective unconscious. Behind every intense feeling lies a story, often an ancient one, woven through your childhood, your ancestry, and even the mythological fabric of humanity itself. When you feel too much, it may be because you are carrying not just your own emotions, but those of generations past. Do not underestimate the weight of collective wounds. The rage you feel may not be yours alone. It may be the voice of countless ancestors who were silenced. The grief you feel may be the echo of centuries of suffering. To hold such emotions without dissolving, you must learn to recognize what is yours and what belongs to the collective. You must become a psychopomp of your own soul, guiding these energies through you without letting them possess you. I once worked with a man who was haunted by an inexplicable sadness. He would wake in the night with tears streaming down his face. Unable to name their source, through dream analysis, we discovered an archetypal image, a child standing alone on a battlefield, holding a broken toy. This child was not a memory from his own life, but a symbol of the collective trauma of war, inherited through the psyche. When he learned to hold this image, to witness the child without becoming the child, something shifted. He realized that his sadness was not a sign of personal weakness, but of a deep, empathic connection to the suffering of humanity. By honoring it, rather than fighting it, he found strength. The same is true for you. You may think you feel too much because you are weak, but it is often because you are deeply connected to your own soul, to the souls of others, to the great web of existence. This is a gift, but it must be cultivated. Otherwise, you will be swept away by the flood. The key is presence. Presence means you can hold the fire of anger without burning, the ocean of grief without drowning, the lightning of joy without losing your grounding. Presence is not detachment. It is the opposite. It is the willingness to feel everything fully while remembering that you are not the feeling itself. It is a kind of mystical tension, a balance between surrender and sovereignty to cultivate presence. You must learn to sit in silence with your emotions, to feel them in your body without immediately reacting. When sadness arises, do not say, "I am sad." Say instead, "Sadness is moving through me." When rage comes, do not lash out or swallow it. Sit with it, feel where it burns in your chest, your throat, your fists. Give it space to speak. And then ask what it needs to teach you. Every emotion carries a message. And when you listen deeply, you find that it does not need to control you. When you begin to sit with your feelings in this way, something remarkable happens. They start to change. Emotions are not static entities. They are living energies. They come to us as visitors, each bearing a gift, though often wrapped in pain or discomfort. Fear, when met with awareness, reveals where you have placed your trust in illusions. Anger, when understood, shows you where your boundaries have been crossed or where your power has been ignored. Grief, though heavy, opens the doorway to love and remembrance. These emotions do not seek to destroy you, they seek to awaken you. But when you resist them, they harden into suffering. Imagine a river blocked by stones and debris. The water swells and turns stagnant, breeding sickness. This is what happens when we repress our emotions. They do not disappear. They remain in the unconscious, festering, poisoning our lives from beneath the surface. You may think you are strong because you do not cry, but that unexpressed sorrow becomes bitterness, resentment, or physical illness. The energy must move, or it will consume you. Feeling without dissolving means becoming the one who clears the stones, who allows the river to flow freely, while knowing that you are not the river itself, but the landscape through which it moves. I have often said that what you resist not only persists, but grows stronger. The same is true of emotion. If you deny your fear, it will show up in your dreams as a monster chasing you through endless corridors. If you reject your sadness, it will manifest in your relationships, coloring everything with a gray shadow. But if you turn and face these emotions, if you give them a voice, they transform. The monster in the dream, when approached with courage, often turns into a guide, offering wisdom or a hidden treasure. So too, your feelings, when embraced, become allies rather than enemies. There is an ancient principle in alchemy, solve et coagula. Dissolve and recombine. To truly grow, we must first allow what is false to dissolve. The same principle applies to emotions. You may need to dissolve the old ways of feeling, the patterns inherited from childhood or society, to discover the pure essence beneath. But dissolving does not mean losing yourself. It means shedding the masks that keep you from feeling authentically. It means breaking open so that the light can enter. Consider the archetype of the phoenix. It burns in its own fire, reduced to ashes, only to rise renewed. This is what happens when you allow yourself to feel fully but consciously. You step into the fire of anger or grief, but you do not lose yourself in the flames. You let them burn away what is no longer needed. And from the ashes, a new self emerges, wiser, stronger, more whole. You fear dissolving because you believe there is nothing beyond the emotion. But beyond it lies your essence, untouched by storms. It is like descending into a cave, fearing you will never find the way out, only to discover that deep inside the cave is a hidden spring, clear and life-giving. The journey through emotion is the same. It is not meant to end in destruction, but in revelation. I once worked with a young woman who described herself as too sensitive. She would cry at the smallest thing, be overwhelmed by the emotions of others, and felt as though the world was too heavy for her soul. Through our work together, she came to see that her sensitivity was not the problem. Her lack of boundaries was. She had never learned to distinguish between her own emotions and the emotions she absorbed from others. When she began to build the inner container, to recognize where she ended and others began, her sensitivity became a gift rather than a burden. She became a healer, using her deep empathy to connect with others, but without losing herself in their pain. This is what I want for you, to transform your too much into just enough, not by diminishing your feelings, but by expanding your capacity to hold them. When you realize that you are vast enough to hold even the most turbulent storms, you will no longer fear them. You will see that each emotion is simply a wave on the great ocean of being, rising and falling, never permanent, never defining you. There is a dream, I recall, a dream from one of my own nights of deep contemplation. I was standing in a cathedral made of mirrors. Every wall reflected my face, but each reflection was different. Some were angry, some sorrowful, some radiant with joy. I realized in that dream that I was not any one of these faces. I was the cathedral itself, the space that held them all. This is the truth of your being. You are not the emotion, you are the sacred space in which emotion appears, shifts, and eventually fades. But to recognize this, you must dare to be with yourself. Modern life does not encourage this. We are constantly distracted, pulled outward by noise, screens, endless demand. We have forgotten how to sit in silence and feel what is alive within us. We numb ourselves with entertainment, with substances, with busyness, but the soul waits patiently. Beneath all this, longing for you to listen. When you finally turn inward, when you allow yourself to feel without distraction, you begin to reclaim the lost parts of yourself. Feeling without dissolving also means not clinging to the story behind the emotion. You see, the mind loves to create narratives. I am sad because of this. I am angry because of that. I am unworthy because they said so. But these stories are often just shadows, projections, illusions. The emotion itself is pure energy. The story is what traps you. Learn to feel the energy without getting lost in the story. Let the sensation move through your body like wind through trees. You will see that once the story is released, the emotion softens, transforms, or disappears altogether. Dreams can teach us this. In dreams, emotions are often intense and raw, but they are not tied to logical explanations. You may wake with tears on your face, having cried for something you cannot name. This shows you that emotion is not always about the outer world, but about the movements of the soul. If you can learn to treat waking emotions the way you treat dream emotions, as mysterious messages rather than absolute truths, you will begin to feel with greater freedom. And let me tell you this, the world needs those who feel deeply. We are living in a time of great disconnection, a time when many have grown numb to their own humanity. Those who can feel without being destroyed by their feelings are the ones who can heal this disconnection. They are the ones who can bring compassion, insight, and renewal. But you cannot offer this gift to the world until you learn to hold it within yourself. To truly master the art of feeling without dissolving, you must learn the paradox of intimacy and distance. This means you allow the emotion to touch you, to move through your body like a sacred current. Yet you also remain anchored in the awareness that watches it all unfold. Imagine sitting by a fire. You feel its warmth, its power, its capacity to illuminate and destroy, but you do not throw yourself into the flames. Instead, you observe, you tend to it. You respect its nature. Emotions are like this fire. They are meant to be honored, but not to consume you. We often think of emotions as personal, as though they belong exclusively to us, but much of what you feel arises from the collective psyche, from the archetypal field that surrounds all of humanity. Think of the archetype of the shadow, that vast reservoir of all the feelings and impulses we refuse to acknowledge. When you feel rage, it is rarely yours alone. It is the rage of countless generations, suppressed, unforgotten, seeking release through you. When you feel grief, you are touching the collective well of all the tears ever shed. If you identify with these emotions, they will crush you under their weight. But if you recognize them as larger than yourself, you can stand as a witness, as a channel through which the collective heals. This is why I urge you to know your own unconscious. To feel deeply without understanding the unconscious is like walking into a labyrinth with no map. You become lost, tangled in the threads of your own mind. But when you learn to navigate your inner labyrinth, you begin to see that every emotion is a guide, pointing you toward some hidden treasure. The anger you feel toward another might reveal a part of yourself you have disowned. The sadness that comes from nowhere may lead you to a forgotten memory, a wound that needs tending. I remember a patient who believed her sensitivity was her curse. She would avoid crowded places because she could feel the emotions of everyone around her. She thought this made her weak, but in her dreams, she saw herself as a priestess standing in the center of a temple, surrounded by people, each of whom came to her with their burdens. In this dream, she was not overwhelmed, she was radiant, holding each emotion like a sacred object. This dream revealed her gift. She was an empath, a vessel for collective healing. Once she learned to ground herself, to recognize her own center, her sensitivity became her strength. She could feel deeply without dissolving, because she had learned to stand in the stillness of her own being. Feeling without dissolving requires you to develop the archetype of the inner warrior, not a warrior who fights emotions, but one who has the strength to hold them. Think of the samurai, calm and poised, aware of the storm around him, but never consumed by it. This inner warrior stands guard at the gate of your soul, ensuring that no emotion overwhelms your essence. It does not mean you suppress or reject your feelings. It means you meet them with courage, with clarity, with presence. Another patient once told me of a recurring dream. She was walking along a shoreline, and a great wave rose up, threatening to swallow her. At first, she would always run terrified. But through our work together, she began to dream differently. She learned to stand still as the wave approached, to breathe, to let it crash over her without fear. In the final dream, the wave did not knock her down. It lifted her, carrying her to a distant shore where the sun was rising. This is what happens when you face your emotions fully. What once seemed like destruction becomes transformation. The greatest fear of those who feel deeply is that they will lose themselves. But you must understand that yourself is not as fragile as you think. Beneath the layers of ego and identity lies the self, the eternal core that cannot be broken by any storm. This self is not a concept. It is a living reality, experienced in moments of deep stillness, profound awe, or sudden clarity. It is the one who watches the waves, the one who remains when all else falls away. When you identify with this self, you no longer fear emotions, because, you know, they are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. We are taught from an early age to fear feelings, to label them as good or bad, to hide them or chase them away. But the psyche is not a battlefield. It is a garden. Each emotion is a seed, and when you tend to it with care, it grows into understanding. The problem is not the existence of emotions, but our refusal to be present with them. We numb ourselves, or we get lost in the drama they create. But there is another way, a way of witnessing, of being with your feelings without drowning in them. I invite you to consider your own life. How often have you said, I can't handle this? What if the truth is that you can handle far more than you believe? What if your emotions are not here to destroy you, but to show you the places within you that are calling for attention? Feeling deeply is like entering a sacred temple. You cannot rush through it or treat it lightly. You must enter with reverence, with curiosity, with the willingness to discover what lies within. When I look into the collective psyche of our time, I see a world afraid of its own heart. We are more comfortable with ideas, with analyses, with abstractions, than we are with raw feeling. But analysis alone cannot heal the soul. We need to feel, to grieve, to rage, to love. Yet, we also need to learn how to hold these feelings in a way that does not tear us apart. This is the task of our age, to reclaim the power of emotion without being enslaved by it. The path forward is not about becoming less sensitive. It is about becoming more conscious. Consciousness is the great alchemist. It turns fear into wisdom, anger into power, grief into compassion. But consciousness requires that you stay present, that you do not flee when the feeling arises. It is tempting to run, to distract yourself, to numb the pain. But every time you do, you lose an opportunity to know yourself more deeply. There is a story from mythology that speaks to this. In the Greek myths, Persephone is taken into the underworld. At first, She is terrified, lost in the darkness. But in time, she learns to rule that realm, to become its queen. The underworld is the unconscious, and Persephone's descent is the journey we all must take into our own depths. When you feel overwhelmed, you are being called into your underworld. The task is not to escape, but to descend consciously, to find the throne that waits for you in the dark. When you descend into your own depths, you discover that the underworld is not a place of punishment, but of initiation. It is the place where illusions are stripped away, where the masks you wear are burned, where only the truth remains. Feeling too much often means you are standing on the threshold of this descent, but have not yet surrendered to it. You fear that if you allow yourself to feel fully, you will never emerge, that you will be lost forever in the labyrinth of your own psyche. But the opposite is true. By resisting, you remain stuck at the entrance, haunted by the shadows that guard the doorway. By entering, you find that the darkness is not empty, but full of hidden treasures waiting to be reclaimed. Think of the archetype of the wounded healer, the one who learns to heal others by first walking through their own pain. This archetype speaks to the necessity of feeling you cannot heal what you do not face. You cannot transform what you refuse to touch. Your deepest emotions are not random. They are the keys to your own becoming. To feel too much is simply to be holding a key without yet knowing how to open the door. Once you learn, you realize that your sensitivity is not a curse, but a compass, guiding you towards your true path. I once had a dream in which I was walking through a forest at night. I carried a lantern, and each time I tried to light the path ahead, the light would flicker and die. Finally, I understood the lantern could not illuminate the entire forest. It could only light the space directly around me. I had to walk slowly, step by step, trusting that the next few feet would be revealed as I moved forward. This dream taught me that we are not meant to see the whole path of our emotions at once. We are meant to feel them moment by moment, to trust that by facing what is present now, the rest will unfold in time. To feel without dissolving is to hold yourself with compassion as you take each step. It is to remember that you are both the traveler and the path, both the dreamer and the dream. When you feel a wave of sorrow, instead of saying, "This is too much," try saying, "This is here, and I can hold it." When joy floods you, do not cling to it or fear its passing. Simply let it wash through, knowing that your essence is not dependent on its presence or absence. We often believe that emotions define us, but they do not. They are the weather of the soul, ever changing. One day you feel the warmth of love, the next the chill of loneliness, and you think something has gone wrong. But the weather is not wrong for changing. It is simply the nature of life. If you can learn to witness the changing seasons of your heart with the same acceptance you give to the seasons of the earth, you will find peace. In my work, I've seen people transform simply by allowing themselves to feel what they have long avoided. A man who carried years of unspoken grief for his father finally allowed himself to cry. And in that moment, he felt a burden lift that he did not even know he was carrying. A woman who was terrified of anger discovered that when she expressed it in a healthy way, it became a source of clarity and strength. These transformations do not happen through suppression or avoidance. They happen through presence. Presence is the art of staying with yourself. Even when it is uncomfortable, it is the willingness to sit in the fire without running, to trust that you are strong enough to withstand it. This is what it means to feel without dissolving. You do not collapse under the weight of your emotions, nor do you numb them. You stand as a witness, the one who holds the entire experience within the vastness of your being. Do you know the story of Inanna's descent into the underworld? She was a goddess who had to shed all her symbols of power, her crown, her jewels, her robes, before she could enter. She arrived naked and vulnerable, and only then could she face the dark queen who ruled below. This myth teaches us that to truly face our emotions, we must let go of the armor we wear. We must be willing to feel naked, exposed, unguarded. It is only in this state of openness that transformation becomes possible. When you feel too much, it is often because you are trying to hold on to control. You resist the emotion, fearing what will happen if you let go. But true strength lies not in control, but in surrender. Not the surrender of collapse, but the surrender of trust. Trust that you are capable of holding what arises. Trust that every emotion has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Trust that nothing you feel can destroy the essence of who you are. I want you to imagine for a moment that your heart is a great cathedral. Each emotion is like a choir that comes to sing its song. Some choirs sing with angelic voices, others with dissonant notes, but all are part of the sacred music of your life. Your task is not to silence the choirs you do not like, but to listen, to understand, to let their song rise and fade. The cathedral remains even when the music changes. This is who you are, the space that holds all these songs, not the songs themselves. There is great power in naming what you feel without becoming it. When you say, I am anxious, you are identifying with the anxiety. But when you say, anxiety is present, you create a distance, a space in which awareness can enter. In that space, transformation can happen. You can feel the anxiety, fully explore its roots, and let it move through you. But you do not mistake it for your identity. And this is the essence of what I want you to remember. You are not your feelings. You are the one who feels. You are not your pain. You are the one who witnesses the pain, who gives it meaning, who learns from it. This is what makes you human. And more than human, this is what makes you whole. To complete this journey, I want to take you even deeper into the heart of what it means to feel without dissolving, because it is not merely a psychological skill, but a sacred art, a way of living, breathing, and meeting life with your whole being. When you begin to accept every wave of emotion without fear, you step into the realm of the mystic, where every feeling is not a threat, but a teacher. Not a storm, but a doorway to deeper awareness. Consider the archetype of the alchemist. The alchemist does not reject the raw materials given to him. He does not curse the lead for being heavy or dull. He takes it into his crucible and through the fire of transformation turns it into gold, Your emotions are this lead. They are raw, heavy, and sometimes painful. But if you bring them into the fire of awareness, if you allow them to be felt fully without identifying with them, they become the gold of wisdom, compassion, and clarity. This is why I say that the depth of your feelings is not your weakness, but your treasure. The world needs souls who can feel deeply and remain whole, because such people become beacons of light for others who are drowning. When you master the art of holding your feelings, you become a safe harbor, not just for yourself, but for those around you. You can listen without absorbing, love without losing yourself, and stand in the presence of pain without being destroyed by it. This is not a state that is given freely. It must be cultivated. It is a practice, a way of becoming intimate with the shadow and the light within you. I remember a dream I once had many years ago, where I was standing before a great mirror. In the reflection, I did not see my face. Instead, I saw countless faces, faces of joy, of sorrow, of anger, of ecstasy, shifting one into the other like waves. At first, I was unsettled, thinking, which of these is me? But then I realized that I was not any single face. I was the mirror itself. The emotions were simply passing reflections. This dream taught me that our true essence is not the emotion, not the mask we wear, but the awareness that reflects them all. When you know yourself as the mirror, the emotions no longer have the power to shatter you. The unconscious often speaks to us through such images. When you dream of being chased, of drowning, of falling, these are not punishments, but invitations. They are symbols pointing to the places in your psyche where you have lost contact with yourself. The feeling of being overwhelmed is often a sign that a part of you is crying out for recognition, for integration. You do not need to banish these parts. You need to welcome them back, as one welcomes a lost child returning home. Do not be afraid of the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the part of you that you have not yet embraced. Every emotion that feels too much often has its roots in the shadow, the unacknowledged grief, the unspoken anger, the unlived joy. When you bring the light of awareness to these places, they no longer control you from the dark. Instead, they become allies, adding depth and richness to your life. Feeling without dissolving also requires a relationship with the body. Too often, we treat emotions as mental phenomena, as things to be analyzed or explained. But emotions live in the body. They are sensations, heat, tightness, trembling, expansion that arise in the physical form. When you learn to feel them in the body without labeling them, without trying to fix them, something changes, the energy begins to move, the body releases its grip, the emotion softens, flows, and transforms. I invite you to practice this. The next time you feel overwhelmed, close your eyes and ask, where in my body do I feel this? Perhaps it is in your chest, like a weight. Perhaps it is in your stomach, like a knot. Instead of saying, I am anxious, say, there is a knot of energy in my stomach. Then breathe into it. Feel it fully, as though you are cradling it in your awareness. This simple act can change everything because it brings you into presence. It allows you to feel without being consumed. You are not meant to eliminate your emotions. You are meant to dance with them, to let them flow through you, like music. Some notes will be soft and tender, others sharp and dissonant, but together they create the symphony of your life. Do not reject any note, for each has its place. Even the darkest emotions have something to teach you. Anger can teach you where your boundaries are. Sadness can show you where your heart has loved and lost. Fear can guide you to the places where courage is needed. When I speak of these things, I do not speak as a distant observer, but as one who has walked this path. I have felt the crushing weight of sorrow, the burning fire of anger, the dizzying heights of joy. I have been broken and remade by my own feelings, and I have seen again and again that what feels like the end is often the beginning. When you allow yourself to feel fully, you discover resilience you did not know you had. You discover that the soul is not fragile but infinite. There is a line I once wrote: there is no coming to consciousness without pain. This is true, but I want to add this: there is also no awakening without love. The love I speak of is not sentimental. It is fierce, unyielding, and first, it is the love of the self, for all its parts, the dark and the light, the broken and the whole. When you feel without dissolving, you are practicing this love. You are saying to every part of yourself, you are welcome here. You belong. This is how healing happens. Not through rejection, not through control, but through acceptance. When you accept your feelings, you are not condoning suffering, you are transforming it. You are turning the raw energy of emotion into the gold of insight, the diamond of wisdom. And now, as I bring these words to a close, I want you to remember this truth. You are not too much. You are vast. You are the sky, the mirror, the cathedral. You can hold all that arises within you without breaking. Every time you choose to feel fully, to stay present with your heart, you expand the boundaries of who you are. You become more whole, more real, more alive. Do not fear your depth. It is in your depth that you will find your true self, the self that cannot be shaken, cannot be drowned, cannot be dissolved. Trust this process. Trust the intelligence of your own soul. And when the next wave of feeling comes, do not run. Stand still. Let it come. Feel it fully. And know that you are the ocean that holds it all.